We'll just go around it a bunch. You'll take the melody. You'll take the melody. Ready? Can you do the melody on banjo?
I would say stick to clarinet and accordion. I'll do like counter melody stuff.
Sure. Ready? Next up is Ma'od Sora. Let's play it 3 times. Sure. 3 times. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, ready. We're running out of time, so I'll take solos on the A. You take solos on the B section until we see that face show. Okay, cool. And then we'll do the head after. You solo on A, I'll solo on B. Cool. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, ready.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 2020 is Now virtual gala, benefiting young advocates for fair education. Thank you, Spilkis, for that wonderful music to start us off. My name is Andy Kahn, and I'm a member of Yaffed's Rabbinical Council. I'm currently an associate rabbi at Temple Emmanuel in Manhattan, and I am the editor of a forthcoming anthology on Jewish approaches and viewpoints on our relationship with the earth. I'm really pleased to be your MC for this evening, and I am grateful for your support in helping us bring strong secular education to Hasidic youth here in New York. At this point, you should have seen that you have all been promoted to panelist status so that we can see everyone's beautiful faces if you choose to share your video. And we ask that you all please make sure that you stay muted. We also recommend using the Yaffed background we sent you prior to the event and that Naftuli put in the chat a couple of times. Finally, we're bringing up a graphic right now showing you how to set yourself to side-by-side view for the portions of the Gala that involve a shared screen. Please take a minute to set yourself to this setting by clicking View Options followed by Side by Side. I think that's up in the upper right-hand corner. You'll only have to do this once. And at this point, I would like to invite our board president, Anita Altman.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I'm sorry, I did not master the technology of getting a red curtain background, so apologies. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm both proud and privileged to be Yaffed's board president. I want to acknowledge and express thanks to our board members, Hannah Silberstein, Shlomo Naskell, Yitzhak Pinchas, Malki Schwartz, and our new member, Phylisa Wisdom, who you will meet very shortly. I often reflect how I, who for almost 30 years a Jewish communal professional at the UJ Federation of New York, became involved in an issue that seems so far from my feminist political activities. As someone who cares deeply about social justice, the answer was, how could I not? And for me, the real question is, why aren't our mainstream Jewish organizations making this a top priority, since they recognize and acknowledge that the lack of a secular education is a major cause of the profound poverty in New York's Hasidic community? To me, their silence truly is complicity in enabling the continued educational neglect of thousands of Jewish youngsters. I want particularly to thank the Jewish foundations and donors for their support, since you, like us, have understood the critical need for change. I'm sorry, there's something that's come up on my screen, and I hope that you are seeing me. I do want to give you an update on the work that Yaffed has undertaken during this very challenging year. As you know, the mission of our organization is to ensure that tens of thousands of Hasidic yeshiva students receive the secular education, many of whom are currently denied, despite the more than 100-year-old New York State law, which requires that every non-public school student in New York State receive an education that is substantially equivalent to that provided by public schools. We are seeking justice for these students. A secular education is so necessary to be able to function in this world and would enable them to earn a living, or if they choose to seek a higher education. Let me make clear, we have no wish to deny a child a Jewish education. Provision of a secular education absolutely is compatible with a religious education, as exemplified by the many outstanding modern Orthodox Jewish day schools and yeshivas currently operating. Our work is both to raise awareness and help to educate the Jewish community, the broader public, and public officials of this issue, as well as to advocate for the enforcement of the law with the Board of Regents, the State Education Department, and members of the New York State Legislature. Last year, we founded our Rabbinical Council, and this year, we organized, with the magic of Zoom, a series of webinars and podcasts which we've entitled Uneducated, providing a vehicle for those who as students experience the educational neglect at these yeshivas to discuss that experience firsthand and its impact on their life. Recordings of these panel discussions can be found on our website, www.yaffed.org, slash uneducated. Yaffed has been quite successful in placing dozens of articles in both the Jewish and general press this year, including a major piece in the Washington Post. And our executive director, Naftuli Moster, is interviewed and widely quoted on any piece about this issue. Be assured, the COVID pandemic has not slowed our work nor the flow of information to the public. It is your support that has enabled our organization to continue to grow. When I joined the board 3 years ago, Yaffed staff consisted only of Naftuli. This year alone, we have raised over $350,000 from individuals and foundations like you. Now we have an outstanding staff who I want to acknowledge my profound appreciation for. We have 5 professionals working who have greatly increased our capacity to fulfill our mission, and our fundraising goal for 2021 is to double our income. Our plans for 2021 include the launch of a scholarship fund for yeshiva graduates seeking to pursue a higher degree from an accredited college or university. While we currently distribute a newsletter in Yiddish 4 times a year to 20,000 households, our goal is to greatly expand our outreach into the Hasidic communities. This Yiddish outreach initiative would include more frequent publication of the newsletter, a hotline, a blog, as well as an app. In order to accomplish this, we need your help. We have launched a crowdfunding campaign to support these initiatives, which is live right now. You can find the link to donate in the chat at the bottom of the Zoom page. I also want to congratulate our 4 honorees, Assemblywoman Cathy Nolan, who was such an early supporter of our work, Rabbi David Gedzelman, the president of the Steinhardt Foundation, who is a true partner, providing his insight, wisdom, and support, and to Beatrice Weber, the Parent Leader Award, who gives so generously of her time, sharing her compelling story and life experience. And finally, to Julian Hartman-Sigall, our Youth Leadership Award. Julian is a private school student who speaks out about the need for the state ed department to pass these proposed state regulations and is organizing other students who share his beliefs. Thank you all so very much. And now I want to introduce you to our newest board member, Phylisa Wisdom, who joined us just last month. And we are so looking forward to working with you, Phylisa.
Thank you, Anita. It's an honor to be here with you all this evening and to have been asked to tell you how I came to join the Yaffed board and why. I identify with Anita's words about how it may not seem like an obvious move. After following the work for the past 3 years, I was moved to reach out to Naftuli and inquire about supporting this cause. I was raised in the Reformed Jewish movement in Southern California, where I began supporting gender, environmental, racial, and economic justice as a youth group teen, which set off the last 2 decades of professional and personal work. When I moved to New York in April 2017 and began working at a literacy nonprofit, I was assigned a portfolio of public schools all over the city, including one in Borough Park. I was fascinated by the difference between the demographics of the public school and the community surrounding the building, and began to research ultra-Orthodox and Hasidic education in New York City. Immediately, I came across an article about Naftuli in the New York Times in 2014 and read all night about the fight for secular education in these schools and the resistance to enforcing substantial equivalency. In my current role, I direct my organization's government affairs, communications, and fundraising to support our program work, which is ensuring that New York City public schools offer evidence-based, effective literacy instruction, especially in under-resourced schools. I do this work because I believe that we have a responsibility, both morally and politically, to ensure that any taxpayer-funded school provides students access to every tool to make a life with dignity that is healthy and safe. Whose job is it to ensure that the academic and social emotional needs of Hasidic children are met? Is it the states, the cities, parents, the community alone? This and other questions I did not know to ask until the past few years when I researched them myself. I know that there are others like me who'd be interested in the fight for secular education. Over the summer, as conversations swirled about public health inequity and the national racial justice uprising, I began talking about this issue in my network. Over and over, I've been met with shock by both Jewish and non-Jewish equity advocates. It is not radical to say that every student who graduates from a school in New York should be able to access meaningful work, further education, or services to meet their needs, and even to thrive. In fact, it's very popular. Additionally, it's not radical to suggest that liberation is collective. In organizing communities across issue areas, we hear variations on a familiar refrain, words attributed to New York City Jewish poet Emma Lazarus: "Until we are free, none of us are free." Access to basic education means freedom for Black and Brown students, for immigrant students, for disabled students, and yes, for ultra-Orthodox students. I look forward to learning from this staff, my fellow board members, and the broader Yaffed community. Congratulations to you all on an incredible year, and I'm so excited to be with you in this work in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you both for your inspiring words and for enlightening us to the true passion you have behind this mission. At this time, we're excited to welcome back Spilkis for some more entertainment. We'll be back with our programming in about 5 minutes, but in the meantime, we have posted in the chat the link to our crowdfunding campaign that has just recently been launched, and we would love your support.
One, two, ready, go. Should we play one more? Yeah, let's do, oh, that's, no, let's do Civi-Bone. This is kind of like a Yiddish swing. I said we could take a couple more minutes.
Cool. An early Hanukkah.
Yeah. One, two, 1, 2, ready.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you, but I want you to know that I don't stand here alone. I represent the thousands and perhaps tens of thousands of parents in New York State who desperately want to see improvements in their children's yeshiva education. Most of these parents, unfortunately, are afraid to speak up and instead follow what they have been told to do. It's been told to me that it's estimated that close to 75% of mothers and 50% of the fathers in the ultra-Orthodox community would like to see their sons receiving a more robust secular education, but they're afraid to speak up. When the school sends out copies of letters for them to sign opposing any new regulations, they sign. When the rabbis tell them that it is dangerous for the spiritual development of their children, they submit. When religious politicians tell them that they're going to need to teach about immodest and blasphemous topics, they believe. For decades, I too kept silent and submitted to what I was told to do. I didn't speak up about this issue, nor any other issues plaguing the community. As many parents in the community do, I kept busy running a household of 12 and taking care of my children as I tried to make the best with what was available, sometimes expressing frustration privately, but never daring to speak up publicly. That changed when I left my marriage 6 years ago. I saw the extent of manipulation and pressure that the rabbis and community leaders were willing to take to shut me down during my divorce, and particularly around gaining custody of my children, despite the fact that at that time, I was very much part of the community. I personally saw how any dissent is considered unacceptable and is shut down at any cost. I then made a decision that I will speak up, whatever the cost, and do my part to ensure that the right thing is done for my children and the thousands of other children in New York State who deserve an adequate education. I personally never graduated high school as a teen, and only later in life attended college. My education, though it was later on, was the key to getting me out of a bad marriage and building a self-determined and independent life. I well understand the importance of education. I want to do whatever I can on behalf of my children and the thousands of parents and children who are unable to speak up for themselves. They deserve to have the resources they need to create independent and self-sufficient lives. I envision a future where every young child and adolescent in New York State graduates from school with an adequate education, an education that will give them choices and allow them to create independent and self-determined lives. No longer will we have a reality where thousands and tens of thousands of children are unable to speak basic English and have minimal to no career choices. Our children deserve better. I want to thank you all for being here with us and adding your voice and support to Yaffed and this important issue. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for your powerful words. You are a true inspiration and a role model, and we are excited to present you tonight with the Parent Leader Award. In the end, everything we're doing is for the students, and I would like to bring up our next awardee, Julian Hartman-Sigall.
Thank you. And big shout out to Yaffed for this honor, which you can't really see in the virtual background. There, I got it. And thank you everybody for coming. So I learned about Yaffed through an article I wrote for my school newspaper that was basically about a lawsuit filed by independent schools, including mine, that was aimed at hindering the proposed regulations that were intended to ensure that all ultra-Orthodox yeshivas were required to provide a basic quality secular education. I was really stunned by the lack of a secular education provided in many of these yeshivas. And I was really disappointed to learn that my school and so many others like it were putting their fears of a potential mild inconvenience above the education of tens of thousands of kids. That's how I got involved. But I've stayed active because I am 17 years old and I didn't get to choose where I was born. In many ways, I feel like I won that lottery. And that's in large part because I go to a school that is routinely ranked amongst the best in the city and can send its students to Ivy League schools. But 15 minutes away from my house, there are communities of kids who, only because of the situation they were born into, won't have anything resembling the education that I have been granted. Boys in ultra-Orthodox schools barely learn any secular content and have anything that even resembled a secular education completely stripped from them when they turn 13. 13. I turned 13 over 4 years ago, and it feels like much longer than that. Because of the situation they were born into, these ultra-Orthodox Jewish boys won't have the opportunities that I have. Mostly, they won't have the opportunity to choose their own path in life. The state allowing kids born into ultra-Orthodox communities to be stripped of a basic education is really just taking away their opportunities in life and taking away their ability to choose what they want to make of themselves. This pandemic has taught us that what happens to our neighbors doesn't just affect them, it affects us. And a failure to educate entire generations of students can have devastating consequences. Our world right now faces so many large problems, and each of us has a finite amount of energy, both physical and emotional, to invest in finding the solutions to these problems. So, you're probably wondering, why did I choose to focus my education on energy on this particular issue? For me, so many of the world's problems are so large and so complicated that it's just overwhelming. Like, really, what am I, a junior in high school going to be able to do to uproot systemic racism, save my future from climate change, or to stop wars happening halfway across the world? Honestly, probably nothing, at least for now. So I choose to put my attention and my energy right here in Brooklyn, where we can make a difference. There are many things I can't do, but I think I can help kids living a few subway stops away get an education that will allow them the opportunities to determine their own future. I think we all can. This is an issue where literally everyone here can influence substantial change. But what will determine if we collectively are able to do the work to affect change is our capacity for empathy. How much are you willing to do and to sacrifice for someone you've never met? For someone you probably will never meet? This question is critical because the kids who need us to fight for them live in insular communities. So it can be easy for people not in those communities to think of them as the other. And it can be easy to ostracize them from your compassion based on your limited interactions with the community or whatever frustrating headline you may have just read. But what we need to do is not easy. We need to look past the enticing negativity and always remember that Yaffed's mission is simple: ensuring that every kid, regardless of birthplace, has an education that can unlock their potential and ensure a self-sufficient and sustainable life. So please, find it within yourself to do whatever you can do to support this organization's work to fight for every child. Thank you.
Julian, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We are incredibly grateful for your work and excited to bestow on you the Student Leader Award. At this time, we are excited to welcome back Spilkis for some more entertainment. We'll be back with our programming in about 5 more minutes. But in the meantime, once again, take a look at the link in the chat for our crowdfunding campaign.
Maybe we'll go like 2 times through the whole thing. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. do it completely instrumental.
Okay.
One, two, three, one, two.
The whole point of our gala is to recognize people for their significant contribution to Yaffed. And tonight, we're honoring two very distinguished individuals who have done just that. At this time, it is with great pleasure that I call our first honoree, Assemblywoman Cathy Nolan, who has received the Empowerment Award. Assemblywoman Cathy Nolan represents the 37th Assembly District in Queens County, which includes the historic New York City neighborhoods in Western Queens. Assemblywoman Nolan is now Deputy Speaker of the New York Assembly, appointed by Speaker Carl Hastie in 2018. Prior to becoming Deputy Speaker, Ms. Nolan chaired the Assembly Education Committee from 2006 to 2018. She has spearheaded efforts to achieve class size reduction, universal pre-K, the Dignity for All Students Act, the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, and so many other measures that will promote success for school children in New York State. Assemblywoman Nolan could have ignored our issue, like so many others have. After all, it does seem kind of niche by comparison to all those other worthy causes. But when she learned of the tens of thousands of children who are being denied an education, she couldn't just turn a blind eye. She invited us for a meeting and then organized a roundtable discussion where she summoned the state education department, private school leaders, and she gave us a prominent seat at that table. She has since continued to advocate on our behalf, and she is committed to seeing the regulations currently under consideration by the Board of Regents be passed as soon as possible. Please welcome Assemblywoman Cathy Nolan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's make sure am I muted still, or let's see. I think we're okay. You know, I really want to thank you so much. It's a very big honor, and I want to hold up the beautiful award and thank you so much. I don't really feel particularly deserving because we still have so far to go, but it is nice to celebrate a little bit along the way. I think I see on the call Assemblywoman Ellen Jaffe, who was the person who first introduced me to Naftuli and all the issues involved with the Yaffed group. So I want to acknowledge Ellen's service and her leadership, both on the education committee and as an Assemblywoman. And, you know, it's a very difficult job, and it's particularly hard to be, you know, to be honest, to be a woman in the job and also be a family person, as Ellen and I both are, and juggle the responsibilities to our families as well as the issues that we care about. So I want to recognize her. And also on the call is a very dear friend of mine, Ira Greenberg and Ellen Young, and I want to thank them for participating today. They're very active in the Jewish community in Western Queens, and I know that they care about this issue also. It's very important that we provide many opportunities for our young people and for their parents to have an education that their parents and they feel provides for them a suitable education. And we certainly do support, I certainly support the right of people to have a religious education for their children. But as we investigated the issue, we became aware that a number of schools, not all, I was very impressed. I'm reading this lengthy thing that you sent me, and I know Anita was talking about the many yeshivas that do a wonderful job, but we became aware of some real gaps and some real problems. And it's very frustrating that we have not been able to resolve them yet, and that we have not been able to come up with an approach that creates a coalition. You know, this coalition has been wonderful, and the work you're doing is fabulous, but we haven't been quite, able to get it over the finish line. But that is sometimes the way in New York politics. As someone who worked on farm worker rights for over 20 years, it's not easy to perhaps push social change as much as when you first get involved, you think it's going to be so, of course, it's a wrong. How do we write it? But sometimes it takes quite a while. But I'm very committed to being as much assistance as I can to you, and as much assistance as we can to strategize to build a good coalition so that we can convince hearts and minds that there has to be equivalent education, and that we have to be able to make sure that all schools are providing it to all children. So I really want to thank all of you. Naftali's definitely become a friend. I never pronounce his name properly, but I give it a nice Queen spin, I hope. And I look forward to many, many more opportunities. And I can't see everyone, these Zoom calls, it's such a frustrating time, isn't it? But I thought I did see Ellen, so I want to give her a shout out. And, I just thank all of you for being here and being part of this. It is such a difficult time for everyone, really, to stay together. So you've managed to pull it off beautifully. And I know you have a full program, so I won't say anything else, except I'll hold up the award again so you can all see it. Through the magic of the technology, how beautiful. And it will grace my office. If we ever get back to Albany, I'll have it here in my home until that time. So thank you again so very, very much. And as I also, just let me say one last word, and then I want to give a shout out to the staff of the Education Committee of the New York State Assembly, which has worked very faithfully on this issue, and my own staff, which has really put a lot of time and effort into this so that we can continue to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Nolan. We are all looking to you for our continued leadership and advocacy on our behalf. And we know that it isn't easy. And at times people will point fingers at you and accuse you of anti-Semitism. But as a rabbi and as one of many rabbis on Yaffed Rabbinical Council, I want you to know you have our full support. And it is also now an honor to introduce another rabbi for our next award presentation. Rabbi David Gedzelman is president and CEO of the Steinhardt Foundation for Jewish Life, which is dedicated to revitalizing Jewish identity by reaching out to all Jews, especially those who are on the margins of Jewish life. Several years ago, David inherited Yaffed's executive director, or invited Yaffed's executive director to meet with Michael Steinhardt, who I also see is on the call, and welcome. Thank you for being here. Michael Steinhardt is chair of the Steinhardt Foundation and advocated for Yaffed to become a Steinhardt grantee. The truth is, he didn't need to do much convincing. Michael Steinhardt is a visionary and quickly saw the tremendous injustice happening and the value Yaffed brings. David has since become an integral part of the Yaffed team of advisors. We turn to him for guidance on just about everything, and his generosity knows no bounds. Most importantly, he is a person who thinks long-term and strategically, and motivates us to think about the long-term structure of the organization and the position in the Jewish world we will inhabit. Please welcome Rabbi David Gedzelman, our Visionary Award honoree.
Thank you, Rabbi Khan, and let me offer my congratulations and thanks to Assemblywoman Nolan, as well as to Beatrice and Julian. And thank you to the entire Yaffed team for honoring me with this award. Although I had a sense for a number of years that there was a serious problem regarding general studies and Haredi yeshivas, I didn't grasp the full extent of the problem until March of 2017, when Naftuli Moster, executive director of Yaffed, came to speak at Ramat Orah, a modern Orthodox shul on West 110th Street in Manhattan, where my family and I have been members for the past 9 years. Our rabbi at the time, Moshe Gruskat, a graduate, a musmach of Yeshiva University, a person with a deep passion for both leading a thoroughly halachic life and engaging in the world as an educated American, invited Naftuli to bring this issue to the attention of his Orthodox congregation, because he felt that those who subscribe to the notion of Torah Umada, of realizing a Torah life together with the pursuit of scientific and secular knowledge, had a special responsibility to be advocates on this issue and to work against a growing phenomenon by which the general society could only come to the conclusion that orthodoxy has the opposite commitment. Rabbi Gruskat's successor, Rabbi Aviad Bodner, is a strong supporter of Yaffed as well. The other shul my family and I belong to and have belonged to for the past 25 years, Anshe Chesed, a conservative congregation on the Upper West Side, invited Naftuli to speak at around the same time. And its rabbi, Jeremy Kalmanovsky, has been active in Yaffed ever since and sits on Yaffed's Rabbinic Advisory Council. I bring up both of the shuls I belong to and their connections to Yaffed to underscore not only that my family and I transcend denominational differences, but to highlight a related point, and that is that my work in supporting Yaffed and my commitment to the goal of ending the educational neglect of tens of thousands of Haredi children is inseparable from my commitment to Klal Yisrael, to the Jewish people as a whole, and comes only from a place of Ahavat Yisrael, of loving every Jew, of wanting every Jew to realize their full potential. About a year and a half after I first met Naftuli at Ramat Orah, Michael Steinhardt, whose foundation I lead, made the decision to support Yaffed's work in a serious way. And Michael does that also from a place of Ahavat Yisrael, of loving the Jewish people, and is deeply concerned that given the demographics of the Haredi community and the reality by which tens of thousands of children, especially in Hasidic yeshivas, are not taught to read and write in English, the reality by which tens of thousands of Hasidic teenagers and young adults don't know what a rectangle is, how to calculate the area of a square, don't know what a cell is, don't know why a virus is infectious, don't know what the Supreme Court is, don't know what 3 branches of government means. He sees that reality, he sees those demographics, and he has deep concern about the wholesale waste of Jewish human capital and the ensuing disaster by which that profile of ignorance will eventually be a dominant face of the Jewish people in America. He has that concern because of Ahavat Yisrael and a commitment to Klal Yisrael. At our foundation, the vast majority of our work over the years has been about a different kind of Jewish ignorance. We create programs designed to engage American Jews firmly entrenched in the open society who are deeply committed to notions of the universal in order to bring them a sense of the Jewish particular. They know what the Supreme Court is. They master calculus. They can recite Beowulf, but many of them, not all, but many of them don't know Bereshit from Eov, the Mishnah from the Zohar, or even have a rudimentary knowledge of Jewish languages, a sense of Jewish history or peoplehood. Most of my work involves helping American Jews see that a universalism that is built on negating the particular is a shallow and flawed universalism. But that universalism, that commitment to all of God's creation that is built on affirming the particular, resonates with the Jewish notion of being, in Isaiah's words, Brit Am La'or Goyim, being established as a covenantal people, a particular people, in order to be a light of nations. Abraham is told in Genesis, V'hayeh bracha, that the people he fathers is to be the very embodiment of blessing, so that V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama, so that all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you. In commenting on the challenges of Western liberalism, the French Jewish philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy says that the problem isn't the tension between the universal and the particular, but rather between two competing notions of the universal. That notion of the universal that is built on the particular, and that notion of the universal that negates the particular. But the dialectic of the particular and the universal is a Jewish idea. As I said, I spend the bulk of my creative energy trying to help American Jews who are firmly universalistic understand that their universal values would be much better served if they added to them a commitment to the Jewish particular, a sense and pride of being part of the extended family that is the Jewish people in the context of universal commitments and aspirations. But here we have the opposite problem. A growing, large community committed to the Jewish particular for the sake of the particular only, apparently not at all rooted in the mission of the universal. And with the exception of Chabad, not even committed to the broadest sense of Jewish peoplehood. For the same reasons that a universalism based on the negation of the particular is in the end itself a baseless universalism, so too a particularism, a celebration of and commitment to a particular people, culture, religion that has no regard for universal mission, that sees no value in all peoples being blessed, is a baseless particularism. It has no true broad purpose. It is the Jewish way, I believe, the Torah way, to affirm both the universal and the particular at the same time. And I believe that is what this struggle is about. And our foundation's commitment to addressing this struggle and fighting this fight, again, comes out of a place of love and concern. I learn Hasidus. I have Hasidic friends. And my Hasidic friends, although they are afraid to say this out loud, appreciate what we are doing. This past January, together with my wife, Judith, and our 3 children, Nomi, Anita, and Ziv, I, like many of you, marched in the Solidarity March against anti-Semitism that was organized by UJA Federation and the JCRC. Marching from Lower Manhattan across the Brooklyn Bridge, we stood in the cold for hours with our friends and community, and were proud to do so. We were proud to stand up for the mostly Haredi victims of this recent series of anti-Semitic attacks. We were proud to teach our children in this way the value of Klal Yisrael. But when we reached Cadman Plaza Park to hear the speeches being made on stage, we were met with a rather strange perspective. A Haredi leader from Flatbush offered the proposition that the real source of anti-Semitism, the thing that gave cause and purpose to these attacks on those who are most visibly Jewish, comes from those who are advocating for pressuring Haredi yeshivas to teach secular subjects. I'm standing there with my family showing solidarity, and it was really a gut punch to hear this. A mentally disturbed man brutally attacked the Hanukkah celebration in Muncie because we make public the fact that Hasidic yeshivas don't teach English and science? Really? I spoke to the organizers of the march the next day, and they assured me that they were as offended as I was, but they didn't believe it would help matters to say that publicly. They would speak to those involved privately. I'm really not sure if Haredi leadership honestly perceives us as anti-Semites, or if this is only a cynical political tactic, or both, but I think it's imperative. Per the Torah's dictate of Yaffed l'reacha kamocha, of loving one's neighbor as oneself, that when leaders in the Haredi community respond to our genuine concern for them and for their children's future by vilifying us, by de-Judaizing us, we can't forget why we are doing this. And any tochacha, any public criticism has to maintain our purpose for Ahavat Yisrael and Klal Yisrael, and recognize the good things that these communities have been able to preserve and give to their children as we work to make sure that they have something more. My ancestors came to this country from Eastern Europe, from Russia on my father's side in 1912, and from Poland on my mother's side in 1921. They were part of a wave of over 2 million Jews who came to these shores between 1880 and 1924. They embraced America from the outset. The organized Jewish community's efforts to help them become Americanized amounted to pushing on an open door. But as I indicated before, too many eventually made that embrace in a way that was unnecessarily to the detriment of a healthy sense of Jewishness. The bulk of the Hasidic community came to this country after the Shoah, after the Second World War and the Holocaust. And much of what they have done to build their communities bears the stamp of the memory of the Holocaust, including how many regard non-Jews and what they consider to be an essentially foreign country. There's an ongoing woundedness and lack of trust underneath the surface. My hope is if these communities would be less afraid and more secure in the power of what they do have, that our work would actually help them realize the promise of Torah Umadah, of authentic, rich Torah in balance with science and general knowledge in ways that we haven't yet seen, in ways that will honor the Torah and show its light to all. You see, given this reality and this possibility, my retort to Bernard-Henri Lévy is that yes, the problem isn't the tension between the universal and the particular. It's between two notions of the particular. That notion of the particular that sees no mission or goal beyond itself, and that notion of the particular that sees beyond itself to affirm all particulars in the body of one humanity, Agudah Achat. I want to thank Naftuli and Anita for everything they do and for the sacrifices they make in this advocacy and for their partnership as we've been working together for the past few years. I also want to thank Assemblywoman Nolan. As I've told Senator Jackson in the past, you take a real risk in making this decision to be on this side of this issue and to care for the education of all children. And for this, as Rabbi Kahn emphasized, you may be accused of horrible things, but please know that those of us in leadership in the Jewish community who stand with you on this issue will have your back. Thank you, everybody, for participating in tonight's event.
Thank you very much for your beautiful words, Rabbi, and we are so grateful for your ongoing support. Congratulations to all of our 2020 honorees and awardees. Let's have one virtual round of applause for all of our recipients. It is from supporters like you that Yaffed is thriving and poised for tremendous successes. Before we have a word from our executive director, Naftuli, I would like to briefly introduce the Yaffed staff.
Hi, my name is Talia. I am Yaffed's Strategic Communications Associate, where I help manage, create, and edit written content as well as visual content. I've only been with the team for about a month, so I'm still pretty new, but it is such an honor and a privilege for me to be working on an organization that wants to grant every single ultra-Orthodox student with a meaningful, substantial, secular education in order to help enrich and elevate and empower their own lives, God willing.
Hi there, I am Rob Colonna and I am the development manager here at Yaffed. I've been here for about 3 months and I oversee fundraising, Salesforce, grants, and events like this virtual gala. One thing I'm looking really forward to next year is bringing on all the different podcast guests we'll have and getting to put together those episodes. It's really cool being able to reach a ton of people and get to work with some awesome individuals. Stay tuned.
Good evening, my name is Hannah Miller and I'm Yaffed's Director of Community Engagement and Organizing. I've been at Yaffed for close to 2 years now, and my work involves developing and maintaining relationships with supporters, mission-aligned organizations, and yeshiva graduates and parents, as well as planning awareness-raising programs and serving as a point of contact for resource referrals and inquiries. I'm really looking forward to continuing our Uneducated webinar series that we launched earlier this year during the pandemic in order to bring increased public awareness to the issue of the lack of secular education in Hasidic issues.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Mignaji. I'm the Director of Operations and Planning at Yaffed. My role is to assist Naftuli in our planning and strategy and to ensure that as a team we are running efficiently and happily. In 2021, I am most looking forward to our Yiddish outreach initiative and to our new podcast.
Hi, my name is Naftuli Moster. I'm the founder and executive director of Yaffed. I oversee strategy, messaging, budgeting, and advocacy at Yaffed. This past year has been particularly challenging for all of us working remotely, but not only have we accomplished so much, but we've even grown. The importance of Yaffed and ensuring a basic education to every child has never been more obvious, and I hope we can count on your continued support as we enter 2021.
Good evening, friends, supporters, and allies. I am Naftuli Moster, founder and executive director of Yaffed. Before I dive into the rest of my remarks, I want to thank our wonderful MC, Rabbi Andy Kahn, for the evening. And I want to congratulate the awardees and honorees, Julian, Beatrice, Assemblywoman Nolan, and Rabbi Gedzelman. Each of you truly deserve to be recognized for all your work, and I look forward to continue working with you in the coming year and beyond. And I want to thank the sponsors of this event, Carrie Shapiro and Peter Fry, Deborah Fine and Martin Schneider, Barbara and Andrew Rothschild, Jamie Hooper, Michelle Totzi, Rabbi David Gedzelman, Eric Wang, Victor Kovner, Shlomo Naskow, and Joshua Rosenthal. I also would like to give a shout out to Ellen Jaffe, Assemblywoman Ellen Jaffe, as Assemblywoman Cathy Nolan had mentioned before, for all the work she has done on this issue. And there are some other elected officials in attendance, and I really appreciate their presence here. Thank you. On behalf of Yaffed and myself, I want to thank each of you for being here and for your commitment to this important cause. Your presence here tonight means so much to us. Let me explain why. I never wanted to become the executive director of an organization. I still recall when I was pursuing my BA in psychology and the advocacy bug first bit me, I insisted to myself that I was simply going to help start a lawsuit and then I would go right back to my studies. And I remember when the attorney we worked with at the time encouraged me to start an organization. I didn't know what that even meant. I didn't know what advocacy means, what community organizing means, what social justice means, let alone how to create or balance a budget, develop a board, hire and manage staff, and so on and so forth. Up until that point, the only two jobs I ever held were tutoring Hasidic boys Judaic studies in a yeshiva and working manual labor in a warehouse. Believe it or not, I was also a pretty shy person, not particularly known for my courage and outspokenness. Yet, there was something that kept pushing me to pursue this. Though clueless about the terminology, I was driven by a strong sense of justice. It may be too late for me, I thought, but it was not too late for the tens of thousands of children who are currently being denied a basic education. Some Hasidim often ask me or tease me, why are you doing this? You left the community, go enjoy your life and leave us alone. My response to them is always the same. If someone had done 30 years ago what I am doing right now, I wouldn't be in this predicament. So I'm not going to let down the children who are currently being denied a basic education. But I will tell you the truth. Sometimes I wish I listened to them. The work we do is so hard, and it is some of the most thankless work you can ever imagine. This isn't sweet work where we hand out food to the poor, where we draw butterflies on the walls of museums, or where we offer classes about Jewish holidays to non-affiliated teens. This work is blunt advocacy, tough, arduous advocacy, where our opponents are armed to the teeth with money, resources, and political influence. At times, it feels like showing up to a gunfight with a knife, a plastic knife, in fact. And present company notwithstanding, we don't have many friends. Frankly, we're hated by most Hasidic and ultra-Orthodox leaders. Politicians, well, I should say most politicians, can't stand that we force them to reckon with a profound injustice they're letting happen only for political reasons. And the mainstream Jewish leaders don't want us to rock the boat because they want to continue having a one-way relationship with Hasidic leaders where they send them money but get nothing in return. Some Jewish organizations will fly blankets to far-flung places around the world, but they'll refuse to say one word about the mass educational neglect in the Jewish community. Other Jewish organizations would rather lobby for public school kids to learn about the Holocaust, but won't say a word about the tens of thousands of Jewish kids who never learn about the Holocaust, or about the Civil War, or about slavery in America. A well-meaning non-Orthodox Jewish friend of mine recently asked me, what can we non-Orthodox Jews do about this? It feels so removed from us, she said. I said to her, how come no one asks that question when they're out there protesting that immigrants are in cages at the border? They go out there, they protest, they contribute money, they contact countless elected officials, even though they don't personally know anyone in that unfortunate situation. Many Jewish organizations will fight for every oppressed group in the world, but will rationalize or even romanticize the major human rights violation in Jewish communities just a few miles away from their homes. Don't get me wrong, the work of humanitarians and immigrant rights activists is important and impactful. The Jewish community should take pride in this work. But what we can't do, what is immoral to do, is operate as if our own community is free of poverty, abuse, and neglect. It is unfortunately not. For a moment, imagine working for this organization. Our dedicated staff who's in attendance has to read in the media and on social media all kinds of vitriol directed against us. And then we all watch as otherwise decent politicians go and cozy up to the perpetrators of this massive injustice, to the people who smear us on a daily basis. And we see the utter silence from mainstream Jewish leaders when our opponents break every single rule in the book and yet get a prominent seat at the table. And then the rejection letters keep piling on. Foundation after foundation feels that ensuring Jewish children get a basic secular education is just, quote, not a priority. It's upsetting and deflating. And above all, it's just exhausting. But then I send my staff a message. We just received a $40,000 grant from the XYZ Foundation. Or our supporter, Jane Doe, just made their annual contribution and she increased it by 20% from last year. Or this private school parent just wrote an amazing op-ed and is sharing it with all their friends and networks. Or this legislator has just introduced new legislation to toughen up the substantial equivalency laws, and so on and so forth. Those are the things that give us hope. They make us show up for work and boost our morale. This room right here is packed with people like that. And this is why I couldn't ask for a better crowd to celebrate the end of a year in which we gave it our best and we made a big difference. It is also a great opportunity to recommit and to pledge to do more, to contribute more, to invite more people to be part of this, to make more noise, to demand more of mainstream Jewish organizations, to contact more elected officials. As we enter the year 2021, I have one request. Don't send us into the lion's den with nothing to fend for ourselves. Give us your commitment to make this issue a priority and to urge all your friends and colleagues to do the same. On behalf of the entire Yaffed team, I want to thank you for being here and for your support. I hope we will be able to meet each other in person again in the near future. Until then, thank you and happy Hanukkah to you and to your families.
This concludes our 2020 virtual gala. We will now invite Spilkis one more time to close us out with one last song. Thank you all again for attending. Thank you for all of your support. Have a great evening. Happy almost Hanukkah.
And thank you all for having us. We're going to close it out with one more Hanukkah song that I think you guys will know. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Thank you.